Good evening and welcome to the Sunrise Schools Division School Board meeting for, what's the date today? April the 5th. My name is Paul Mang, I'm the board chair. We have 8 trustees here with us, we have 7 trustees here with us in the room, and 1 trustee is online. Trustee Rowan is not able to make it. But we do have Trustee Barry, we have Trustee Inslee, we have Trustee Duma, Trustee Reed, Trustee Harris, Trustee Pachakowski, and myself. And online is Trustee Nickel. In the room with us we have Superintendent Timko, Secretary Treasurer Carlton, Secretary Treasurer Thiessen. I said it right? Yep. Thiessen. We have Assistant Superintendent Julian, and we have board support Stacy Bonato, as well as we have a presentation from Bossier Early Years School. So we have Principal Mike Carter and Assistant Principal Caleb Reichsbetter. So that's who we have here with us today. And so if you're joining us online, I just wanted to let you know, Mike and Caleb, there's probably about 1 million people that are watching online behind you. And we enjoy those people online that are joining us today. Oh yeah. Thanks very much. Trustee Pachakowski reminded me is that before we call our meeting to order, this is our last meeting with Secretary Carlton, as Secretary Carlton is going on to St. River School Division, and Secretary Treasurer Carlton has been with us for about 3.5 years, and we really like to thank for the relationships that you build with people here in the room, and certainly with our schools and our parents, for the work that you've gone ahead and done. So thanks, Scott, for the work. And we're excited to have Jody come on board with us. And Jody had worked with us in the past and back at us with again. And you know what, Jody? We're glad that you're aboard. And this is day 2, so we're all going to throw you about 100 questions today to help you with day 2. But thanks very much, Jody, and welcome to the Sunrise team. So I'm going to call our meeting to order, and it's 7:04, and we're going to have call Dugald School Sing O Canada. So if you can do so, please stand for O Canada. Thank you to Ecole Dugald School. We have our treaty acknowledgement, and we're going to have Trustee Barry read out our treaty acknowledgement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We acknowledge that the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honor our partnership with Canada's original peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thanks, Trustee Barry. Thanks, Trustee Barry. We now are at 2.1, adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved that the board approve the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Pachakowski, seconded by Trustee Reed. Questions of the agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. And so it passed 8-0. A reminder that we have Diane, Trustee Rowland is not in attendance tonight, so there's 8 trustees that are here. Thanks. A reminder to send your any questions to scarlton@sunrisesd.ca, certain your name and address if you have any questions, and we'll answer it during question period. I'm going to open up the floor to share a story. Are there any trustees that would like to share a story? Trustee Duma.
Just wanted to let the board know, I last minute decided to attend a conference on Zoom. It was called the Rural Education Conference. It's hosted by the University of Saskatoon and the Saskatoon Trustees Association. It was on Zoom. Very interesting. I just thought it was just like something we don't get exposed to a lot here at the table, but there were some amazing workshops, and it ran quite well. There were no glitches, and I just thought to share with the board the topics that I attended were, one was on a panel on Indigenous learning, which was incredibly interesting. Then there was also a research study done through Brandon Yu, a study on the shift to remote learning that happened because of COVID. Very interesting, again, with feedback as to how it affected the learning in the classroom. Then there was a presentation done by a teacher who really wanted to explore engaging families in elementary math. And he wanted to have parents involved in how they could support their kids. Very interesting. And then the last one I attended was agriculture in the classroom, which was, again, very interesting, nice for the rural area. So I just thought I'd share with that, and that's available to everybody. We do get information at the board about that conference, and it was nice because it was on Zoom. I didn't have to go to Saskatoon, so it was kind of cool. And the other thing I'd like to share is just that you can really feel that there's a hum in the schools as things are rolling into more action. So I thought I would share that there's been lots of buzz going on at the Dugald School with their band activities. SCI is going to be hosting a fashion show. The Oakbank Elementary School is starting up some fundraising for their playground, and SMS produced a video of the school activities. It was quite fun to watch. It was done by staff and students. So you can feel it in the air that there's something moving on, and it feels kind of exciting. So I thought I would share.
Thanks, Trustee Duma, for sharing that. A part of it is that it's something that we haven't done a lot of sharing because we haven't been able to get into schools, or it's been difficult. And yeah, do you know what? When you talked about the hum, good to hear about that going on in our schools. Any others? Trustee Pachkowski?
So sort of carry on with what Trustee Duma was saying about a hum in schools. So it's nice to know that some PACs are starting to get together face to face again, and I'm very excited to share with the millions of viewers out there that Gillis PAC is going to be starting to meet again. It's been a while since they've met. I always sit here and rave actually about EBOS's PAC and how they've stayed together, through virtual means in the past couple of years. But it's been a while for Gillis, and they're going to be meeting on April 13th at 6:30 p.m. and that will go out in their newsletter at the school too. So I know parents want to engage, so there's your opportunity. Again, to the millions of people that are watching, and that's it.
You said you raved about the Bossier early years PACs? Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to share a story? I think that I'll share stories just before spring break. There was a lot of schools that had spirit weeks and a number of things going on in the schools, and it was great to see as I reached out to some of the schools, they were all going back to their pajama days and dress ups and those kind of things, and it was pretty, it was great to see some of those kind of things going on in our schools, much like what Trustee Duma talked about. The word I think that you used is the hum in the schools. Yes, the activity and those kind of things, and it's really great to see us after a long period of time getting involved in doing those kind of things. So kudos to all the staff that are involved in that. Kathy?
Just wanted to give a shout out to our administrators again who've been doing some heavy lifting all the way through the pandemic and have had to sit on Zoom listening to probably a not so engaging superintendent all the time with all of the COVID this, COVID that. And on the 15th of March, we gathered in the gym next door here, and there was a buzz and a hum and a palpable feeling because we had administrators in the room who'd never met each other before. And it was the first time they'd ever been in the room together. And it was really neat to see the adults gathering and getting together and networking, and it was a really great feeling from the superintendent chair, and a lot of good feedback from administrators because they've been doing a lot of heavy lifting for 2 years. It was really, really good to be in the same room learning together.
Thanks, Kath. Anyone else? Okay. Let's get on to, we have certainly the administration here from Beaujeu Early Years School. Kath, I'm going to let you introduce.
Thanks. We have the team of Mike and Kayla who are here from École Beaujeu Early Years School, and they have been doing a ton of heavy lifting with their school plan and addressing a whole host of things that they're going to tell you about.
So I just want to let you know, Mike, is that you've got about 12 minutes, and every time that you go over 12 minutes, you get less money next year. So I just wanted to give you that heads up. Now, welcome, Mike and Kayla. Certainly, floor is yours.
Thank you. So yes, as already mentioned, my name is Mike Carter. I'm the principal at École Beaujeu Early Years School. Kayla Breitsprecher is our assistant principal. Today, I want to talk to you a bit about our school plan and kind of the progress we've achieved so far, some of the progress we've seen and where we're going next. I think is really a big part of the conversation as we're just embarking on what we see as being a 3-year plan for the school that we're really embarking this year. What I want to go over today is I'm going to do a bit of an introduction here quickly, just so that you understand some of the dynamics of École Beaujeu Early Years School. Review what the school goal is, the rationale behind that school goal, why did we come to that, some of the strategies we've already implemented and where we're at with that progress, as well as where we're at with student achievement and how are we measuring student achievement with this plan. I also want to address a bit on where we are going next, and then obviously open things up to questions. So really quickly, many of you are familiar obviously with École Beaujeu Early Years School already. We are a growing school. We are right now at 485 students, 200 in French immersion, 285 in English as of the end of last month. That is up quite a bit. So we are seeing a steady increase in our population. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I do believe 5-6 years ago we were on the 400 mark. So we are seeing a steady increase throughout the school. We are a dual track school, obviously, and where we've seen a lot of the growth is in French immersion as of late. Where it used to be 1/3 of the population, now we're well over that, and we're looking at 200 of the 485 kids being in French immersion. So that's a bit about the school. Our school goal is around literacy, and it's been around literacy for a while. Before I even got to the school, that was the school goal. The goal this year, we have really tried to encompass a much bigger project, I would say, that has many different pieces, and I kind of want to break some of that down, but the goal itself is through the implementation of a comprehensive literacy program at all grade levels, students will demonstrate growth in reading and writing as evidenced by provincial report cards and divisional assessment tools. The word here I want to focus on is comprehensive, and I think that's a big piece for our school. So when I say comprehensive, we're talking about reading, we're talking about writing, we're talking about word work, and how all of those are interconnected. Making sure that we are focusing not on one aspect, but on all aspects, because we know that you can't be a strong writer without being a strong reader, and vice versa. They go hand in hand, and so there's an interconnection there, and we need to make sure that we are doing things purposefully towards improving all aspects of literacy. And when I talk about comprehensive literacy, a lot of what I'm talking about today is going to be focused on ELA, our English language program in both French immersion and English programming, but it does also apply to French language. And I'll discuss a bit of some of our resources that we put towards that. But a lot of what we're focusing on right now is in the area of ELA for both French and English programming. Rationale. I put 3 things here. There's actually a 4th I'm going to get to because it's become more evident as we move through the process here. Some of this data we collected last year shows that we need really to focus on how are we progressing our struggling learners. If we look at the report card data, we are really good at moving kids from 2s to 3s and 3s to 4s. We struggle more in the area of moving kids from 1s to 2s, is what we saw. So how are we really working with our struggling learners? And making sure that we are doing everything we can in the classroom to support all learners in the classroom. The other piece there was there is a need for a more comprehensive and responsive approach to literacy. So we often saw that we were teaching writing without necessarily incorporating the word work aspects and the reading aspects. So we're separating the literacy approaches and rather having an interconnected approach. So one of the things we wanted to do was ensure that we have a comprehensive program, and we needed to be responsive. So what I mean by responsive is that we are meeting the needs of individual learners in the classroom. We want to ensure that our programming is not aimed at an average, but aimed at the individual students who are in the desks in front of the teacher, and making sure we're meeting every single individual student's needs. That means that teachers are utilizing assessment methods to inform their instruction on an ongoing basis. We're not collecting data for reporting period only. We're collecting data on student achievement throughout the school year to inform the next steps in instruction. So those are 2 areas we saw the need. Another area is simply the impact that COVID has had on learning. It has had an impact on student learning. And that goes from inability to having students work in different groups, crossing cohorts. The list goes on, and we could spend a long time talking about that, but we know there's been an impact, and we need to address some of that impact. The other item that has come up as we have started moving through this project this year, it's not listed here, but we need to have some alignment both vertically and horizontally within the school. So as we started looking in what are the current practices, we will have different practices occurring in 2 grade 1-2 classrooms who are next door to each other. We will have different practices between grade levels moving up, so between 1-2s and 3-4s. And so we want to make sure that we have some alignment so that we can support teachers, and we need to make sure that that is aligned with what is best practice. So that was another thing that's come up that we are really focusing on right now, is some of that alignment between classrooms. And we'll talk a bit about that when we talk about some of our strategies here and what we've done. So that's sort of the rationale in a nutshell for the goal. 3 main strategies. I kind of took a look at what have we done, and these are the 3 strategies we focused on at this time. Number 1, resources to support instruction. We found that there were holes in terms of making sure that teachers had the resources they needed in the classrooms. And we saw that we just needed to make sure that we have literature that is at the right level for all of our students and all of our learners, that's easily accessible, and is interesting and engaging. So we have spent a good portion of our school-based decision-making dollars, our IAA dollars, our EAL dollars, some of our French communication dollars in this area of improving the resources in our classrooms in both languages. So that was one strategy. Next strategy was literacy intervention. What are we doing to support our really struggling learners? And so what does that look like for intervention strategies, reading recovery, the role that student services plays in that? So that was another strategy we implemented, ensuring that we have those interventions available to support our struggling learners. And the last one is really where we've spent the most time and effort, and that is looking at pedagogy in the classrooms and ensuring that we have a comprehensive responsive literacy instruction in all of our classrooms. So that's really implementing a lot of the divisionally supported practices, so that we've worked very closely with Suzanne Deanspear and Joanna Capteen in this project. They have been an integral role in all of this, and I'll kind of in a moment here talk about what their role has been. But following in their views on, and the divisional views on what is a comprehensive literacy program. Obviously, it's grounded in provincial curriculum as well. And once again, supported by the division is a big piece here. So those are the three things we focused on in terms of strategies this year. So progress so far. You can actually go right to the next slide, please, Kathy. Spending on resources. Give you an idea of our spending. So in our categorical funds, we've spent approximately $38,000. I'd rounded off the numbers a little bit just to make it a little easier, but we've spent approximately $38,000. From there, through divisional funds, another $11,500, and through grants, and in particular French Revitalization Grant, another $2,500, all in the area of literacy in both languages. To give you an idea of what that actually means in terms of purchasing, everything from providing teachers with resources such as the Fontes de Pinel assessment toolkits. We had to make sure we had those in the school. That kind of comes back to some of the pieces, going off on a bit of a tangent here, but coming back to that idea of alignment. We found that in our school we had multiple toolkits that we were using to assess student reading. Two main ones being Fontes de Pinel and PM Benchmark, which are common tools used throughout the province and throughout our schools. But we had grade 1-2 classes, between the 4 classes, 2 doing one thing and 2 doing another. And so we wanted to align things so that we're not talking apples and oranges, but we're talking the same thing. Fontes and Pinel is supported by our program leaders, and so we wanted to make sure that we made purchases, that we had those toolkits available to our staff. Other items we've spent it on a lot of books going into classrooms, guided reading kits, making sure that we have the guided reading resources in our classrooms, and a lot on making sure that we have appropriately leveled books in the classrooms to meet all the students' needs and ensuring they're engaging. We've also spent money to ensure that we have Indigenous perspectives in those books that are coming into classrooms. Some of the dollars have been spent in collaboration as well, and pulling teachers together for some professional development with our program leaders. So that gives you a picture of where some of that spending has gone. Next slide. Students receiving intervention. We've kind of looked at intervention 2 ways. We have a reading recovery program. We are staffed 0.75 at this time for reading recovery. That is a very one-to-one intervention model for grade 1 students. And then we also have our student support services team. We are fortunate that we have some phenomenal teachers, especially in the area of literacy, pulling students out to work with them. Now, some of this is changing too, because some of the restrictions have changed now as well with COVID. So where before we were, during COVID, not having kids meeting in small groups and pulling kids from different classrooms, now we have the opportunity to pull kids together in more diverse groups. But we also have the ability to get into classrooms more and having our student services looking at more of a push-in model where they're working with students in the classroom and really modeling for our classroom teachers different strategies and interventions to both meet the needs of the students, but also to further progress our learning for our teachers. And then the last one is support for literacy instruction is the next slide. This is sort of what we've done in terms of supporting our classroom teachers. So we've done 8 PD sessions so far this year. Majority of those have been put on by Suzanne Dean-Spear and Joanna Capteen. And then we've had follow-up sessions. So really getting into classrooms and supporting teachers when they're working with their kids. So we've had Joanna and Suzanne in the school on 23 different times already this year, working with our teachers in the classroom, following up on sort of what was covered during those PD sessions and helping them with the implementation. So we've been very fortunate to work with Suzanne and Joanna, and I can't speak highly enough of the work they've done so far and the appreciation that teachers are showing for having that support. So student achievement. We are early on in the project. So right now, we're at a point where a lot of these different ideas we are implementing, but the teachers are learning some of this as we've gone through the year. So the data I'm going to share here is just a snapshot of some of the pieces we pulled together. When we talk about data for this goal, though, the data sets that we're pulling, running records is one, and we're looking at Fontes Pinel there. So we're pulling the running record data. We're looking at the student progressions, or divisional student progressions in reading and writing we're pulling. Words Their Way inventories is part of that process as well. as well as collecting writing samples throughout the year so we can gauge and assess student achievement, both in the classroom but also pulling samples across the school so we can see achievement across the school. And lastly, report card data as well. So we pulled quite a few data sets. I've just put a few together here today to kind of show you what we're talking about. But even now, so the original data we took, our baseline data would have been taken in October. And at that time, a number of our teachers were learning some of these tools. So some of the data we've collected so far might not even be indicative of student progress, but rather teacher progress as well in this. So this student achievement, it's early on still, but it gives you an idea of some of the things we're looking at. So the first slide for student achievement, we're looking at reading levels. This is using Fontes and Pinnell. And one of the items we looked at is a comparison of term 1 to term 2. What progress have we seen? So we've seen here, this is just our grade 1-2 class students in both French immersion and English, so we're looking at ELA. Of the 161 kids, we see that 23 have made a jump of 4 levels already, 10 have made a jump of 5, but we also see that 13 show no jump here. So the question then is, why is there no increase? Part of that has to do with teacher learning and assessment. So it might be that when the initial assessment was done in October, they were just learning the tool and now they become more efficient with it. So it could be a question of whether or not the data that was collected was accurate at the time. It also opens up for those kids who haven't progressed, then we can look at further, why haven't they progressed? What interventions have been tried? And who needs those supports? So this is just a sample of kind of some of the data we're pulling and we're continuing to look at. Once again, still early on in the project, so I'm much more interested to see what this data looks like at the end of term 3 and after we've had a full year of learning, and where does this look at this point in time next school year as we continue to develop our teachers' abilities in these areas. Other data here, developmental word study. So this is the word work. This is using the tool from Words Their Way, and kind of the progression there, and we continue to see a progression, but you'll see most students have progressed. A few actually decreased. What does that tell us? It tells us that teachers, initially when they learned the assessment tool, they've continued their learning, and we see that they've actually changed how they're assessing students. So this was something we implemented this year that was very new to many of our teachers. It's an area that we continue to work on. This kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking though for data and what we can pull for data to inform decision making. So this shows us that we have some areas to work on still and some questions to ask of teachers in terms of who are these students and why is it that this data is showing this. At the same time, we're seeing a number of them progressing. Other pieces of data we're looking at is even the correlation between reading scores from Fontes and Pinnell and the word study, the Words Their Way scores. Keep in mind these are two completely separate programs coming from two completely different publishers, but they assign grade levels. There's always the caveat when we work with some of these tools that these tools are not developed for Manitoba education curriculum necessarily. So when they say grade 3 level, we have to take that as what it is it's them saying it's grade 3 level. It's not us saying based on Manitoba curriculum it's grade 3 level. But we can draw some comparisons to see where things are at in terms of correlating their reading scores with their word study scores. And we see that there is quite a bit of non-apparent correlation in some cases. It's asked a lot of questions, but this may very well show how we've seen in the past that there is a discrepancy between us having very high reading scores and our writing scores falling behind as a whole school. So it starts giving us data sets where we start asking those questions. Why is it this way? Is this an area that we need to focus on in terms of improving teacher performance to get the results we need? So these data sets just give you an idea of what we are looking at in terms of data. We are still very early on in the process. Teachers are still learning. But these are all the different data sets amongst others that we are looking at to inform our own decision making as a school and really posing those questions of why do we see this data and what needs to happen in certain areas. So there's no slideshow for this next part, but really the next steps for us. I've told staff already, this is not a one-year project. To really implement a comprehensive literacy program that is aligned through all grade levels, This is going to take some time. When we started looking at different programming, I'll use spelling as a good example. We would have multiple different spelling programs within the school, but none of them, there'd be discrepancies on what's based in best practice. So bringing everyone on board, that means that teachers are having to learn new things. If we look at how we're doing guided reading and ensuring that our guided reading is done effectively, it takes time to develop those things. So we have talked to staff about this being a 3-year plan. We've just started this year. It's going to take some time to change all of these things because we're not looking at one aspect of literacy, we're looking at all aspects of literacy in a comprehensive plan. So where we're going next with this, we need to dig deeper into the pedagogy and ensuring that we are developing strong pedagogy and best practice in the classroom around literacy. We need to dig deeper into data. That's on both as a school-wide level and us getting into some of the data that I shared with you today, and ensuring we're utilizing that data to inform decision-making moving forward. But we also need to do a better job at the classroom level in ensuring that we're triangulating data to inform instruction decisions on a daily basis. So I'm not asking teachers to provide me data 3 times a year. They should be looking at collecting data both through observation, conversation, and product on a daily basis to inform their instruction in the classroom so we're meeting the diverse needs of the students. We know that our classrooms have diverse needs within them. We need to do a very good job as educators in meeting those diverse needs and ensuring that we're meeting the needs of every individual child. So that requires us to continue to be looking at student progress. And the last piece here that we're starting to develop into this is the accountability piece. And how can we develop internal accountability into the system so that all teachers are meeting these expectations. And so some of the things we've already done is a lot of the work that they're doing with their colleagues and expectations around sharing progress with colleagues. They're held accountable to each other. They're held accountable to ensuring that they are doing their best they can and that their learning is happening. So those are the things that really we're looking at for next steps as a school with some of this. And a lot of this will be, in terms of specifics for that, is going to be informed by our data collection as we move through this project. I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about today. Kayla, did I miss anything? So at this point, are there any questions?
Thanks very much, Mike. We appreciate it. Questions from anybody here? Trustee Pachikowski.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about the growth of the school or student population in the school, so not the growth of the physical building. But that's sort of what I'm going to ask about. So I guess a couple things with the growth. So what can you tell the board about how that's affected your class sizes? I know you talked a lot about through the presentation about student data, and I mean I've always sort of focused as a trustee on class sizes, and we all know around the table now how larger groups impact student learning and not in a positive way typically. So just looking for your insight into that, and then are there discussions right now with the division about maybe some future planning, because I think we're probably going to wind up in a place where we need to do some looking into that. So.
Yeah, so we are growing as a school. Last year we increased the school by 1 classroom. So we saw the need that we needed to add a French immersion classroom to keep classroom sizes manageable. So in the best interest of the kids' learning, we did add a classroom. Within our building, that posed some challenges. Namely, we converted our computer lab into a music room, moved the music and art room around. So we actually had to reconfigure quite a few of our classrooms to make it work. In the end, it was successful. So we added a French immersion classroom. We have our computers, our laptops now in a cart, and can be signed out and moved into classrooms. And we've managed to successfully, I would say, add a classroom for this year. That's kept our numbers in the classrooms more manageable. We are right now looking at what are our classroom configurations for next school year, and do we need to add another classroom? That is a question we're right now looking at. Based on our numbers coming in, we're kind of waiting to see what our kindergarten numbers look like as well with that discussion. So no decision's been made for next year yet, but we do have and are formulating plans that if we do continue to see increase, where could we add another classroom in the short term? Then there's the long-term conversation. I know we've talked, Scott, myself, Kathy have already talked about what's the long-term solution to this problem, and that's where looking at some of those options for longer-term solution and problem solving. But for right now, we have a tentative plan kind of we're formulating if we do need to add another classroom for next year, and we have that flexibility. The reality of it is getting very tight for space in the building. So it is a short-term plan. It's not ideal, but I do believe it's manageable to at least as a short-term solution, ensuring that we have that option. But no decision's been made yet for next year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Trustee Barry?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, very, very informative. Got just a couple questions, I guess. One point, our nephew goes to French immersion, and his parents really enjoy it, so they got nothing but good things to say about the teacher in French immersion. And the other question is just, I guess, on the neighborhood specifically, with all the new residential development across the street, has that created issues for the buses dropping and picking up kids, or has it created problems with parents or staff?
Good question. We kind of solved the problem a little bit, not knowing that we were solving the problem. So with COVID, we had it so we had different entrances being used in different cohorts. So one of the things we did is rather than having everyone coming through the front door to start the day, we have been using the back of the playground where the Sungrove Center parking lot is, happens to back right onto our playground where our ambulance access is anyway, so it's a very easy spot to access the school, and it's always cleared, the snow's always cleared there. We've been using that as our drop-off site and pick-up site for students who are being dropped off and picked up by parents, and we put supervision there. So by doing that, and it wasn't to deal with the congestion at the front of the school so much as to keep kids separated for COVID, we've actually solved some of those problems. So now, for 3 years ago, before COVID, at 3:30, we might have 50 parents standing in the foyer at the front of the building to pick up kids, and on Friday it was probably more than 50. There's some safety concerns with that, obviously, but also that's a lot of traffic coming in through the front door. Our bus loop is right at the front door, and now we have a busy street in front of the school where before we had trees across the school. So we've sort of solved the problem without actually having that as the intention in the first place. So as the restrictions have lifted, we continue to have pickup drop-off at Sungrove Center. We also have kindergarten pickup drop-off. There's another secondary loop that the daycare and nursery school and kindergarten sort of use. So we sort of spread out the access points, so really the only kids coming in the front door at the beginning of the day and going out at the end of the day are those kids on the buses. So I think that has helped solve the problem immensely with the amount of traffic that is now in front of the school.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation tonight. Comprehensive literacy is a great goal to have. I remember when I was in elementary school just a few decades ago, the school library and scholastic book sales were high on my priority list. Do you find that a strong interest with students? And because you get in-home learning by that, right, from parents?
It's funny you bring up scholastic book sales. We have one starting on the 16th. We actually had one during COVID where the kids could purchase from the library. Parents weren't allowed in the building. Very different way of doing things. We had online sales available too, so kids could go home with their little note about what they wanted, and the parents could purchase online, or kids could bring funds to the school. This was about, a month and a half ago? 2 months ago? Yeah. Approximately. It might have been our greatest sale total to date, to be honest with you. The kids were so excited to have Scholastic back in the school. So we brought it back again because there's so much excitement and so many wanting more. So we're also doing a parent night for Scholastic on Monday because that's also the night of our PAC meeting. So we're tied the two together and hopefully get a few more parents out for our PAC meeting on Monday. But yeah, Scholastic sales are going strong still, and kids still get incredibly excited about it. And it's an opportunity for us to put books in kids' hands. And that's incredibly important to us, is making sure kids have access to literature and engaging books that they have a real interest in. We want to develop a love of reading with our children.
Thanks. Anyone else? So I have a couple for you, Mike. You spent a lot of money on resources, and you put resources in kids' hands and in teachers' hands. And you've got a plan in whether you're using Fontes and Pinnell or reading. So are you happy where you are? And if you're not, what are you doing about it?
I like the question.
Great question.
Some things I'm very happy with, and other things I see as areas for improvement still. If we look at, I'll start with what I'm happy with seeing. We have a fairly large staff, obviously, with 485 kids. We have a large staff. Going in with a goal of this magnitude and bringing about change is not always easy. At this point in time, I think I can safely say that we have all of our teachers on board with this plan. And they are working at different levels, just like our students. They come in with different needs as learners. Teachers are similar. They're at different points in their own learning. We have everything from seasoned teachers to the teachers who just got out of university and took their first term job at the school in the last few weeks. So the reality, though, is the teachers have some excitement about this learning and are on board. And that's a big piece of the puzzle right there. Where I see us having a lot of need, some of it comes from COVID. So with COVID, there were things within best practice that were difficult to do. And so, for example, guided reading is small group instruction in classrooms. If you've got a classroom with 25 students in it and all the desks are already spread out and we're trying to keep kids spread out, very difficult to do small group instruction. Yet we know that small group instruction is important, especially at an elementary level, for implementing guided reading and other pedagogy within the classroom. So some of that has been left out until the last few weeks. And so you talked at the beginning of the meeting here about the buzz and the excitement that's in schools. Teachers are feeling it too. When I started telling teachers we were going to start bringing back in their U-shaped table so they can do guided reading around the U-shaped table, they got really excited because it's been a long time since they've had some of those opportunities. So I think that's one area that has really been a struggle with this plan that we are suddenly able to start making some headway on. I think a lot of the struggle right now is just simply that it's taking time, and it's going to take time to bring about the change that we're looking for. But at the same time, making sure that teachers know that they're well supported, making sure that they know that there's accountability, but also we're making sure that they're moving along and going in the right direction at the pace they need to go at in some areas. But I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we've faced with this program so far is kind of the restrictions that we've had to work around. And we are coming out of those now, and we're seeing a change already in how teachers are approaching their instruction in the classroom.
Thanks, Mike. So you've got 2 minutes to talk to the 8 trustees here with regard to, as you move forward, we're looking for, we're looking for student improvement all the time. So what are some of the things that you need to continue in this venue with regard to improving student learning? Because I think this board, Mike, wants to put dollars in your hands to do things, but we don't want to do it if you don't have results. So what we're looking for is what are some of the results that you're using. And Fontes and Pinnell, we've used that for a long time. Guided reading has been around for a long time for us. So what are some of the things that you need so that tell to us, trust, what are some of the struggles that you have to certainly be able to get some of those results that you're looking for?
So what we would need moving forward is a lot of what we already have been working with. So we talk about dollars, obviously a lot of things come down to dollars. Making sure we can continue to put those resources in the classrooms. This year we spent a good portion of our school-based decision-making and those sorts of dollars in the area of literacy. We will continue to do that next year as well because we're not done. We focused a lot on our grade 1-2s this year and putting the resources in the 1-2 classrooms. The 3-4 classrooms is where we're going next. And so not to say they don't have the resources they need. In some cases it's just updating those resources. Give you a good example. I remember last year looking at a leveled book in a classroom. It's got a rotary phone on the front. How many of our grade 2 students know what a rotary phone is? So making sure we're updating those resources. The other big thing with this is ensuring that teachers have the opportunity to continue their learning and have the supports needed for that. We know that one-day PD sessions is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about ongoing learning that's going to take time, and ensuring that we have those program leaders still available to support our teachers, and ensuring that there's opportunities for us to pull teachers together, whether or not that's bringing subs into the building so we can do collaboration, ensuring that we are focused on this during our PD days that are already allotted to us in our calendar. So a lot of what we're looking for is ensuring that we have the ability to offer the learning opportunities for our teachers. We want to ensure that all of our teachers are very strong in their pedagogy around literacy in the classrooms, and we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to collaborate with their colleagues, with our program leaders to improve their abilities.
Thanks, Mike. Anything else from anyone? Okay, Mike. Thanks, Mike and Kayla, for coming out and presenting to us. We appreciate it. Kath, any last words from you?
Just that I like hearing the work that they do, and then every 6 weeks they get a visit from me and we talk through some of the things that all of our schools are doing, and sometimes schools will say, oh, she's coming again, but it's great to hear the same conversations here in this room that we have on a regular basis, so it's always nice.
All right. Thanks very much, guys. And of course, we expect you to stay for the next 3 hours, so certainly join us now. Thanks very much for being out here, and we appreciate it. Have a good evening. We're going to move forward with our minutes of March the 15th. Be it resolved, the board adopt the March 15 board meeting minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Petrikowski, seconded by Trustee Harris. Questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. And we had 6 people yes, 1 no, and 1 abstention. Thank you. We have the superintendent's report. Kathy, 6.1.
Thank you. I just wanted to let folks know that we still have some rapid antigen test kits available for any staff or students in our division, so just please make sure you let your schools know those are available as we need them. There is some concern or some word that we've got an uptick in some of the cases, so if there is anyone who is in need of kits, please contact your school and we can make sure that we get those into the hands of folks who might need them. We are actively in the process of staffing our schools for the upcoming school year, so our high school students are doing course registrations. They're picking the courses they want to take for next year. We have schools of choice applications coming in, and the schools of choice process has to be in by May 15th. Jackie looks after that process with Jennifer Baker, and so they are already looking at applications, and we want to make decisions so that we know how to staff our schools. Again, we'll make those decisions as soon as we're able, but the May 15th deadline is there. 2 things that are coming up in terms of in-person on the horizon. We've got schools that are planning for in-person orientation for kindergarten. We have a meeting coming up to talk with schools about what that looks like and what the dates might be. We also have schools who are busy planning for a grade 12 convocation ceremony and for some graduation fun. Lastly, I think I brought last time that we have Dr. Jody Carrington, who's doing a presentation on May 9th. We'll have that link out to folks if they want to. If you want to join your school, each of the schools will be broadcasting that. And then we'll go back to the very, very beginning. As you have pointed out, we have 2 secretary-treasurers. So for the first time in my career, I have 2 secretary-treasurers supporting me, and it's pretty exciting. And I just wanted to say, Scott, thank you for the hard work for the last couple of years. It's been brilliant, the things that we've sort of accomplished together. And the best part is that I have a friend for life now. And Jody, welcome. We have much work to do. And I also have another new friend for life because you can't escape. So welcome.
Any questions or comments for Kathy? Thanks, Kathy. Trustee Duma?
Sorry, it's not on the list here. I wonder, is there any planning going on for Youth Parliament this year?
Great question. There's a meeting this week in terms of kind of talking through what the logistics might be and whether it's feasible and if people are ready for that. But they are meeting this week, and I don't remember the date, but it's this week that they're gathering.
Thanks. So 6.2 is our draft reporting schedule, and you've got that there as for information for us. Kathy, you have some stuff coming on later on, so thanks for that. We're going to go to our Secretary Treasurer's report. Scott, 7.1.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a very, very short report this week. I was on holidays actually the last 2 weeks, but I do have a couple of things I want to point out. First and foremost, our transportation bus order was sent to the province on the 17th of March, just after it was approved at the last board meeting. A board meeting, which is certainly not the case, I assure trustees here. Jason is starting to make some preparations over there now where he's going to install a propane tank in the yard at the bus garage on South Street, so that's ongoing. In maintenance, we'd submitted a pretty substantial amount of projects for consideration when the province called for some extended capital projects. Unfortunately, didn't get the bulk of those approved. We put in for almost $750,000, just over $750,000, and were approved for only 2 projects, control system upgrades, which are an integral part of the HVAC systems at both Centennial and Whitemouth schools. In talking to other school divisions, the province had identified several priorities, including accessibility and some other things. It seems like the only projects that got approved were related to HVAC, so they had very much an HVAC focus in this round of projects. So it seems like that's the case there. And then finally, Susan did all the legwork, as she always does, on our frame budget, which had to be submitted to the province at the end of March. So that's in and ready to go. This is my last board meeting, so I'm going to take a couple of minutes, and I'm trying to do this. Paul was at the SELT meeting the other day, and all the principals said goodbye to Darlene, who had been here for 30 years, and Darlene broke down into tears, and then Kathy said goodbye to me, and that just started me crying, and it was a mess. So, but I do want to say to this board, I appreciate the opportunity. When I started, we had an awesome senior admin team: Brian DeVries, Leanne Peters, Leslie, Kathy. That's morphed into now obviously Jackie and Jason Lang. I had a great management team: Danielle, into Jason Ziprick, Gord Tulloch, Derek Ryback, Susan Nodell, Tracy Weidman. I was coming, I support what they do, and I have to understand what they do, but they really do all the work, and I feel like I get the credit. So phenomenal people. So if I have any advice for Jody, absolutely lean on those people. They're great. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Scott, one of the things that you've got in here is in your maintenance report is you talk about some of the projects. And is it possible, Kath and Jody, we have some projects that we know that are coming up, because I'm starting to sign, the people that are signing checks are signing some checks with companies that are doing things, for instance, for projects that are probably happening over the summer. So for instance, I think tonight I signed a check with regard to an architect with regard to labs. So is there somewhere that in the next little while we can update with some of the summer projects, just to let the public know certainly what are some of the things that are going on that we have with the projects? Because I could say, hey, I signed a check to do this, but I think that would probably be better is that if we can come out and say, here, we know that some of the things that are going on, and you would have noticed it, and I think that Dawn probably would have noticed it too. I'm not sure that the rest of the trustees do, so I think that it's also good at just informing the rest of our trustees about some of the things that are coming on that we can go ahead and share, and that would be really helpful just to keep people informed. Scott, let's move on to 8.1, COVID costs.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but suffice to say, we've had this as a running document. We did receive just a shade over $1 million in additional funding from the province this year, $1.03 million, and we're tracking to be spending approximately that. I think by the end of the year, if we start assessing some of the sick time that our staff has taken, and I haven't even started that, so I'll leave that on Jody's plate, with regard to substitute costs and splitting that out, whether that's COVID or non-COVID related. I think we'll be close to spending out the funding that we've received, and we'll report that to the province.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions on COVID costs? Okay, we're going to move forward. This is information monthly enrollment. It's an information report that you've asked, the trustees have asked. It's for information. Is there any questions for Kathy on the enrollment report? Okay, we've got school carryover progress report. Scott?
Yeah, I'll take this one quickly. Apologies again, with me being off for the last couple of weeks. This is something where we did have a number of schools, if memory serves, it was a considerable number because most schools were underspent due to COVID, that did request to this board carryovers of some of their funding last year. And as part of that carryover approval from this board, schools were to report on a progress of how they had spent those dollars. So for Jody's purposes, just quickly, schools can request a carryover, but it generally has to be for a specific amount and a specific project, not just a general carryover. So I didn't have an opportunity to get to those schools. I think it's the case where if we just reached out to those schools, asked for a paragraph in terms of a progress update, that's something we can definitely bring. So I'll encourage Jody to bring that for the next meeting.
So Kath and Jody, can you work on that for our next meeting to see about kind of an update as to where schools are? Thanks. Trustee Duma?
Before we lose Scott in the agenda, there was two questions. We submitted a request for portables, did we not? But we didn't hear anything, or that's my first question. And then the second question is, are we applying for any Green Team folks? Aren't applications coming out, or do we even do?
So Catherine, my question to you would be, are you happy with our report card with the data that we've got with regard to critical thinking, problem solving, reading and writing? Are you happy with our progression? And maybe you haven't, go ahead.
I was waiting for your second question. If I'm not, what do I want to do about it? I think, so am I happy with the progress right now coming out of a pandemic? Yeah, I think that I am. I was decently worried that we would have regression on the go and that we would see kids either at a plateau or even going backwards in some of their skills. And so from that standpoint, to say that they are actually gaining growth, I'm happy with that. The piece that has always been a struggle for us is looking at it over time and a year-to-year basis and wanting to be able to dig into the data work of how do I take the kids who are in grade 3 this year and then look at them in terms of how have they progressed from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, because every year we look at the grade 2s, it's a different group of grade 2s. And it's that longitudinal data over time that we want to try to get better at looking at and really kind of drilling into how do we grab that progression over time for the same group of kids. That's probably the place that I'm least happy with and would like to tackle.
So today we had a presentation from Bolger Early Years, and it looked at one of the areas here, reading. They chose to give us data on a guided reading thing, not on report cards, and totally fine. I think that the issue certainly is always, you're right, it's not about comparing the grade 2s from this year to next year, it's comparing the grade 2s and the grade 3s and how they're progressing through and how many of them are getting 3s and 4s on the report cards as opposed to 1s and 2s. I guess the question is, the question that I'll always have is, do we have enough kids? Are we happy with the kids that are getting 3s and 4s on our report cards? If we're not happy, what are we doing about it? And where do we need to go?
I think one just quick answer is that we've also challenged all of our schools to look at the hard work. So when they drill down into the report card data, so you might be looking at different reading assessments, but the way that a school comes to the decision that we're going to work on reading is by looking at the report card and saying we're struggling in reading. Don't pick the thing that you're good at, and I'm going to go way back a couple of decades probably, and maybe just a decade more than you, Trustee Harris, but when you're playing a sport, and I'm playing baseball, and I can feel the ball that's coming right to me, that's fine. But if I can't do a backhand, I've got to work on the skill that I'm not good at. So our schools are trying to look at what's the thing that we're struggling with, and they're putting their resources and their energies into that based on the report card data. So you might hear some different assessment tools, and you might hear different things that they're doing, but their base decision is coming from the report card data, if that helps.
Thanks, Kath. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on. 8.5 is policy. Thanks, Kathy. So this is, I believe, coming from the policy committee. Be it resolved that the board revise policy number 5 to reflect that the superintendent evaluation take place in April or May to be in line with the wording of policy number 9. So let's get it on the floor. Moved by Trustee Harris, seconded by Trustee Pachakowski. Any comments to this? Trustee Ainsley?
I can't see any difference between the attachment that's on the agenda and the circle that's the document that's in the policy manual, because you said that you've revised policy number 5, but there's nothing on the chart in the boxes that says anything about the superintendent's review. And so I'm not sure what's changed. You said it's revised, but I can't see any changes. Am I looking in the wrong place?
The motion is to revise that. I don't know if the document on there reflects the change or doesn't reflect it yet. It's to align, in our review of policies, we found that the two policies were out of sync. So the motion is defining what we're changing, and once it's changed, then we'll update that chart, if that makes sense.
Trustee Duma?
Sorry. If you look at the circle at the bottom of it, the square, it says August, the board and superintendent evaluation, right? That's what you want to change. You want to move that to May on the circle because the policy 9 already has it in it. Right? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
thank you, Trustee Duma. It's just that the way that I was reading the information was that we've got to, that you'd already made the changes. Sorry, that's how I was reading it. So.
Good point. Good question, Karen. It hasn't been changed. The idea that the motion on the floor is to change it. Any other questions to the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. And that passed 8-0, thank you. We have information, proposal to subdivide in Springfield, so there's information there about a subdivision. Anybody want any comments on that information? Okay. 8.7 is a Springfield Collegiate Institute field trip, the band trip to Dauphin. Be it resolved that the board approve in principle the Springfield Collegiate Institute trip to Dauphin, Manitoba, May 11th and 12th, subject to the superintendent's final approval. Motion by Trustee Duma, seconded by Trustee Barry. Questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. And it passed 8-0, thank you. Financial monitoring report, I see in action, but I'm not sure. So can someone help me with that?
So we had a rather robust discussion about the monitoring report and potential changes to be made to it, maybe even turning it into a different type of document. I believe Trustee Nicoll had something he was going to circulate to Finance Committee. We only had 2 available to attend last meeting, and then potentially bring that forward, but I'm not sure, Don, are you ready to bring that forward? Or?
No, I just want to let the board know that we are looking at changing it quite radically. If you got, again, I'm asking you as the chair of the finance, if you got any ideas how you think it will be, what we think of doing is taking out some information that we don't think is necessary to put in there, and then putting in some information that we think it would be useful. But that will be coming at the next meeting.
Thanks, Don. So at your next finance meeting, you're going to be discussing it?
That's right. We discussed last time, but we didn't come with any final decision. So, like Scott said, there's only 2 of us, so we're waiting until we get all of us together and we'll discuss it and come up with a decision.
So you're going to bring forward a recommendation and have a discussion at this table?
That's right.
Thank you. Yeah, and so you're looking for feedback from trustees now to help that discussion, but trustees will also have the opportunity to give feedback when you're here. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. Trustee Duma?
Just regarding this item, the document was in ESB before, like it was already in the meeting, because I remember looking at it. Now it's been removed. So I guess when the agenda was agreed to at the beginning of the meeting, then perhaps that should have been raised, that was removed and removed when the agenda was approved, because you approved an agenda with this item in it, just for information. So somebody took it out when we already had approved the agenda as it was. So I'm just for future reference.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Harris?
When I was reviewing this agenda material over the weekend, I never saw any report in there. And if there had been a change, that line item would be highlighted in a shading if something was changed in it. So nothing's been removed. Nothing was in there to be removed. So it might be further down. There's another financial monitoring report item on the agenda later on, but not this document that Don was talking about. It's never been in here. No.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, at agenda setting, we had put it as a placeholder. Weren't sure if Don was going to be ready to present or not.
I thought, Diane, so I thought at our agenda planning meeting is that Dawn, if they had time from the finance meeting, that they were going to come and bring a proposal with regard to a change to the financial monitoring report. And then certainly for us to have a discussion. That was my understanding. It's not here. I don't remember seeing anything prior to this, but if it was, the point's taken. Karen, you had something?
With regard to the feedback from trustees on the financial monitoring report, what format is the finance chair requiring, and is there a date that he wants feedback from us?
Dawn, is there a date?
Does somebody have a mic on? There's no format, because we haven't decided on our format yet, so you can indicate to us what kind of format you'd like. The date is our next, which would be the 21st of April, is when we have our next finance meeting. So if we get it before the 21st of April, it'd be nice to have it a couple days ahead of time so that we can circulate among the members, and then we'll have time to discuss it at the 21st. And again, we might not get a consensus. We may not finish it in time. So I'm not guaranteeing that we'll bring it to the next meeting. The plan is to bring it to the next meeting, but it's not necessary. That might not happen.
Okay, thanks, Don. Thanks, Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
So when I said format, I mean, I'm just basically asking, do you want us to email you, Don?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, that's what I meant. Just email me.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Karen. We're going to move forward. We have 8.9, the 795 Jaffrey Street parking. We had a letter. Is this you, Scott, talking to this? This is information. Anything else?
Yeah, I can speak to this. So, you know, this has come up as an issue certainly a few times. You know, it seems the province has been prone to providing and funding these cookie-cutter daycares wherever they're doing expansion to schools. All across the province, you see a similar type of daycare. They have a specific allotment for parking for staff, which, you know, Leola, the director at Dougal Daycare, has brought to my attention is simply not enough. I mean, I guess the challenge is I'm not sure as a school division, you know, where we go from here. We received funding to build what we built. And anything else we would decide to do, we would have to find money for that elsewhere. So that's kind of consistently been the challenge. I recognize, if you know the area, the daycare's right across the street from an apartment block. Parking is pretty bad there. I completely understand. I'm just not sure where this board would like to go with that.
Trustee Inslee?
I don't know if you can answer this, Scott, but I used to teach classes at the community club where the daycare is, across the road, and that parking lot is actually pretty huge. Is it, I don't know, is it owned by the municipality? Is that parking lot actually usable? Are they, I mean, can some of the parking be resolved by using that parking space? Because when I've taught there, there's been like ample, even when the daycare's full, there's been tons and tons of like parking in that parking lot. So I don't know if it is an option, whether we have to ask permission. I don't know who owns it, whether it's a municipal or daycare lot. So it was just something I was thinking about today.
That's actually a really good question, and that's one that Jody actually might know better than I. And I do remember you teaching classes there because I was in a meeting with Leola and you tried to get me to come in and do some exercise.
So my suggestion here, Jody, is for you and Kathy to meet with the Dougal Daycare. There is a letter here that's come to the school board. Maybe there are some trustees that you can set up a meeting with some of the trustees, and the trustees in the area could go to this. They've asked the trustees something, so I do think that it's not our trustees going, it's you going with our trustees and setting up a meeting and figuring out, you know, is there a solution? There may not be a solution, but I do think that somebody's asked us, and so we need to go ahead and respond. So, Katha, are we okay with doing? Again, one person can't just tell the superintendent to go ahead and do something. Are we okay about doing something like that, Trustee Barry?
Can I interrupt?
Don, I'll get right to you. I'll come to Trustee Barry and I'll come back to you.
Well, yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think Karen's quite right. During my tenure on town council, we had many meetings, municipal meetings at that building, so I believe it is owned by the Arm of Springfield, but we could just do some research, contact them, get that information, and then meet, you know, so we know that it's specifically the ownership is by the Arm of Springfield.
Thanks, Art. Don?
Yeah, you mentioned about trustees. What I did is the last 2 days, I did a lot of research using the Google satellite map. I have 2, 3, or 4 solutions that I think is reasonable. If Jody and Cash wants me to share that to you with you at some time, I will. I spent about 4 or 5 hours working on it, and I think all of them are feasible, but one is probably better than the other, which I don't want to mention. I'm not going to mention today what it is, but because I got to show maps and everything else.
Okay, so I need to be careful about me just saying, hey Kathy, let's go ahead and do this. This is something that I suggest that we should go ahead and do, Kathy, to meet and have some trustees there. Are trustees okay with doing this, about giving direction to our superintendent and do that? Karen, Art, are you good? Diane, Russ? Robin?
It seems like this issue has come up every year. I've been on the board only a couple of years, that, and it's something we should get resolved. And if that means going through the superintendent to do that, let's get a solution to it.
Jared's good. Don, are you good with this? Well, Kathy setting up a meeting with Jody and then inviting a couple of trustees, and trustees, you can let Kathy know if that's something that you want to go ahead and do, and go from there. Fair enough? Okay, Kath? Okay, thank you for doing that. Where are we? 8.10, Parview School Canoe Trip. Be it resolved that the board approve in principle the Parview Canoe Trip to Nopewing Park, June 27th to the 29th, subject to the superintendent's final approver. Moved by Trustee Pachakowski, seconded by Trustee Duma. Any questions to this? Hearing none, we'll vote. It passed 8-0, thank you. Where are we? 8.11, Policy Committee Update, Policy Harris. Anything to comment on?
Nothing to comment, just we have a meeting April 4th, next week.
Okay, thank you. Finance Committee Update, Dawn, anything to comment on? Dawn, did you hear me? Anything to comment on the Finance Committee Chair? Finance 8.12?
I've been talking for the last 10 minutes, but I forgot to put the mute on mute off. So, yes, we are going to meet on the 21st, and the main thing we're looking at is the monitoring put, changing it to be, we think, probably more useful for us.
Dawn, you made about 10 people laugh here, so that was pretty good. So thanks for that, Dawn. Okay, thank you for the update. 8.12 is that I'm the signing authority for the month of March. And 8.13 is that we have the check register. Be it resolved that the board received the February 2022 check register, total amount of $3,521,082.56, reviewed on the 17th of March by the Finance Committee for information. Don, are you moving this?
Yes, I am, but I also want to go back to what you said. You said you had check authority for the month of March or for the month of April?
Oh yeah, for the month of April, because we're in April, sorry. It's interesting what you read and you kind of think in your brain. It's for the month of April. Thank you for that. So we got a mover. We need a seconder to the motion. Seconded by Trustee Harris. Any comments on it? Oh, Trustee Harris?
My apologies. When I went to answer the last question, my laptop went down and shut off. I cannot vote electronically. We have to go by hand.
All right, we have to vote by hand. Stace, we'll do that, but we'll do this by hand. Finance the check register. So we're going to go ahead and vote. Trustee Inslee, yea or nay? Yes. Trustee Barry, yes. Trustee Duma, yes. Trustee Reed, yes. Trustee Harris, yes. Trustee Pachakowski, yes. Trustee Magna, yes. Trustee Nichols?
Yes.
All right, so it passed 8-0. Thank you. We only allow this to happen once, Trustee Harris. All right. Professional development. We have the capsule conference, and so myself, Trustee Nichols, Trustee Rowland, Trustee Doomy, and Trustee Inslee have signed up for it. There's a number of information that's coming out from Stacy. Thanks, Stacy, for giving us all that information. but those are the 5 that are going out to the capsule conference. Thanks, Trustee Dumas, certainly on the report that you shared, certainly with regard to the school board meeting out in Saskatoon, that you didn't have to drive and you could do it on Zoom. Thanks for sharing that. Those things are good. Thank you. We have 10.1, a financial monitoring report. Be it resolved that the board adopt the financial monitoring report for the month ended February 28, 2022, reviewed by the Finance Committee on March 17th. Don, are you moving this?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Seconded by Trustee Reed. Thank you. Comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. So we passed 7-1. Thank you. We have board correspondence, the information that's been sent out. We have the information that's on their proposal to subdivide Alactabani. That was a response that we sent. There's nice to know information. I'm not going to read those all for you, but there is nice to know. There's one in there that talks about some high school team winning high school hockey title. I guess I have to go ahead and say that. Congratulations to SEI for going ahead and winning the high school hockey title. Kudos to them and their team. It's on here certainly about Lars's announcement. Congratulations. We have upcoming meetings, press releases, questions from the public. Scott, do we have any questions from the public?
If you give me 2 seconds, I'm just going to refresh my email, but while I do that, I thought I got quite eloquent. Thanks everybody who supported me while I worked here, but I forgot my right hand who started a couple of months after me and kind of managed everything I do. Jody, listen to her too. She's got it together. So thanks to Stacy. I don't see any emails, Paul.
Okay, thank you. We do have some items from in-camera, and we're done in-camera, right? So we just have these last items? Okay. So, be it resolved that the board offer the position of Principal, Division Student Support Services effective September the 6th as recommended by the Superintendent. I need someone to move by Trustee Pachakowski, seconded by Trustee Harris. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. You want to comment? Yeah. Okay. Comment, Trustee Pachakowski?
Sometimes we have conversations in camera, and I just want to echo publicly the amount of quality candidates we have coming from within the division. It was something we talked about. And just I think it speaks to what our administrators are capable of and what they've been doing, and the work that our senior administration has been doing with our school administrators. So I just want to thank everybody for that.
Good point. Thank you. Others? Okay, we'll vote. And it passed 8-0. Thank you. 17.2, be it resolved, the board offer the position of the Oakbank Elementary School Principal effective September the 6th as recommended by the Superintendent. Moved by Trustee Duma, seconded by Trustee Inslee. Comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. And it passed 8-0. Thank you. 17.3, be it resolved that the board approve the recommended administrative appointment as presented effective September the 6th. Do we not have to, Kath, so one we've given division principal, one is we given Oakbank. It'll tip the hat. Thank you, Kath. Be it resolved the board approve the recommended administration appointment as presented effective September the 6th. Moved by Trustee Duma, seconded by Trustee Pachakowski. Questions? Comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. 8 past 8, nothing as well. It looks like we're at an adjournment, and we did say that before I adjourn, we did say that we would go ahead and have a special, a board meeting, not a board meeting. Trustees were meeting on the 12th at 6 o'clock, and I will forward that information to you, certainly about some of the topics that we're talking about. It'll be here. Yes, 6 o'clock. And you know what, we'll try to go from 6 to 8 o'clock, and there's no need to be going any later than that. We don't get what we need to get done, we won't get it done, but we'll go from there, 6 to 8 o'clock. So we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Scott. Appreciate it. Welcome aboard, Jody. Thanks, Don.
Yes.